Hi there, everyone. My name is Hemalayaa. Welcome to the Unstoppable Woman series. This is where we're going to learn how to turn challenges into growth, find joy and gratitude every day, and love your life now. I have been super stopped in my life, and I'm excited to learn more skills on how to keep being resilient and going forward in life when life is going to always try to get us down. So I'm excited to talk to Matt today, Matt Gersper. I hope I'm saying that correctly, Matt.
That's right.
Okay, great. So Matt is an incredible human being. I'm very, very excited to speak with him today. He is an author, a keynote speaker, and entrepreneur. He's on a mission to improve the health and well-being of the world, one person at a time. Matt is the founder of Happy Living, author of 2 books, The Belief Roadmap and Turning Inspiration into Action. And he's an independent publisher of other authors' books as well. So he writes every day to inspire people to believe that a better self is always possible. Today, every day, and for the rest of their lives. He's so in alignment with what we're talking about here. He's graduated from the University of California, Davis, where he studied economics, ran track, and played football. He dedicated his first 2 years after college to becoming a professional football player. After football, he transformed his life into a successful businessman, eventually selling his company. Now he's dedicated to helping others with happy living. And Matt lives on a lake with his beautiful wife and their 2 daughters. And I am super happy to have you here, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. I have some questions for you. You have an incredible website called Happy Living, and you've also written so much on the topic of turning inspiration into action. Specifically, you have a book called Turning Inspiration into Action. So I would love to hear about that because it's so in connection to our theme completely. So would you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I think it really is connected. When I looked at the theme that you've created, how to turn challenges into growth, find joy and gratitude daily, and love the life you live now.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar to the subtitle of my book, which is all about connecting to the powers that you need to conquer negativity. So that's like turning challenges into growth. And the next line is acting on the best opportunities. And that's like finding your joy in life. And then my next line is to live the life of your dreams. And yours is creating your unstoppable life. It's almost like they were written at the same time to mean the same thing. But for me, what it is we have a process. I actually kind of identified a process almost by accident. I was in a situation where I had gone to a conference. We had just started Happy Living, and it was a big paleo event down in Austin, Texas. And I was new to the whole blogging world and new to lifestyle and all that. So it was about 5,000 people at this conference. My eyes were really big, and it's exciting. One of my first non-traditional business kind of adventures, and it was great. And on the way home, while I was at the conference, I started noticing that people get really excited and inspired. You know, all the paleo people are there. You go there to become more after the conference than you were before. You're looking for something. And while you're there, you're energized by people and things and ideas that inspire you. And I recognized that pattern from my business world. When I used to be a software manufacturer and in space of international trade, it doesn't really matter, but we would exhibit at big conferences. We'd have prospects come around and we'd get them all excited about our latest features. And you could see the enthusiasm, but the enthusiasm didn't survive the trip home. And so I started thinking about that and said, I think that's going to be the same at any conference. And so I wrote about how you can turn your conference inspirations into action. The next thing I know, I got invited to speak on that topic. And while I was at this conference, my daughter was working with me at the time, and we did this about an hour-long workshop on turning conference inspirations into action. And again, this was early in the Happy Living days, Nobody knew anything about me, who I was, where I came from, nothing. So I decided to introduce myself through sharing some transformational processes I've gone through in my life, where I turned inspiration into action and brought it into my life. And so as I look back and I was preparing for this little workshop, I started developing what I call a transformational process now. At the conclusion of that workshop, my daughter said, "Dad, that's your book." And so I thought, I always wanted to write a book. So I started thinking about that and decided, okay, on the flight home from that conference, I decided I'm going to write a book. And in order to learn how to write books and how to publish books, we decided to take some of our blog posts that were about my philosophies of life, physical fitness, mental fitness, spiritual fitness, all kinds of different philosophies that I developed along the way for happy living. And we put them into a book called The Belief Roadmap, which is the free gift that we're offering to your attendees. And we did that really as a pilot program for what I call the real book, so we could kind of learn the process. And to be honest with you, the Belief Roadmap's outselling the real book right now, but that's beside the point. As I started getting into the process of what were the big transformations in my life? What was the pattern, if there was one? I didn't know there was one when I started, but I started noticing this pattern, and it was based on 7 concepts: 3 questions, 3 powers, and a concept I call gravity. So I'll start with gravity, because gravity is what you call being stopped.
Yes. Okay.
Gravity is all the stuff in your life, and it's different for everybody. Real gravity is the same for everybody, but my gravity is different for everybody. It's the negativity that holds your life in place. And it might be today's International Women's Day. For many, many years, being a woman was gravity. It prevented women from doing things that men could do. So it could be cultural things such as that. It could be inner voice issues. It could be family holding you back. It could be anything that creeps into your mind and prevents you from doing what you have a feeling you want to do, right? So that's gravity. And as I worked through my process, I realized that we don't have to change gravity. You don't have to work on gravity. What you have to do is answer 3 questions that invoke 3 powers that give you the strength to overcome gravity in spite of its pull.
Okay, this is exciting. Give it to us.
So the 3 questions are, and the first one is the most important question if we just limit this talk to going to a conference. And so that the first question is, what inspires you? Mm-hmm. And it's important to be very mindful, to be looking for it, to sense things that touch you, grab you. We all know it when we feel it. Sometimes it's hard to describe it, but I'll give you an example. When I was talking at that conference, and I was giving this workshop in front of these about 100 people or so, I had that feeling that you hear people talk about of being in the zone. I mean, it was just like flowing. Everything was beautiful and magic, and there was no self-doubt or worry. It was like, wow, this is great. And it made an impression on my daughter too. She noticed it, and the audience felt it. We had a moment. And so that was important. I needed to pay attention to that. Around the same time, in the summertime, I do my writing out on our back porch overlooking the lake, and I saw this beautiful seaplane, bright yellow seaplane land right in front of my property. And I was moved by it. I thought, wow, that's cool. Wouldn't it be great to own a seaplane? And I had those little thoughts that, gee, when people come into the town, I could fly down and pick them up and drop them off right in front of the house, and wow, that'd be great. And so both of those are inspirations that I was attracted to. So that's the first step. Pay attention to what attracts you and make a list of it, mental list or whatever, but try to keep track of it because it's important. The second question is, why is it important to me? And so going from the first question to the second question, we start to invoke 2 powers. The first power is the power of priority. We can only do so many things. We're all 24/7. There's no changing that. So when you start asking, why is it important to me? Go back to my two examples. The seaplane, not important. First of all, I don't like being flashy, and that's pretty flashy, as flashy as it can get. Second of all, I'm really a dangerous driver. It would be, I should never, ever fly a plane. It's just a bad idea. And so I could check off all the reasons why I shouldn't own a seaplane. And when I do that, I should just let it go. No more wasting time, mental energy, anything about the seaplane, forget about it. The turning inspiration into action idea and writing the book is something I've always wanted to do my entire life. It fits perfectly with my mission at Happy Living of giving back and of improving the health and well-being of the world one person at a time. It fits with my business philosophy of, which is a part of my philosophy of financial fitness, doing something once that can create revenue over and over again, recurring revenue. I also fit a business model that says, create products and services that are not limited geographically at all. Well, my books are sold in all 12 Amazon marketplaces all over the world, and we have readers all over the world. So I can and just check off list after list after list that this fits me. And so as you answer those questions, why is it important to you? You're prioritizing, throwing out what is important, throwing out what's not important, keeping what is important. And when you start figuring out why it is important, you invoke a second power, and that's the power of the heart. That's the mama bear power. That's when you hear, people have superhuman strength when they're in a certain situation. That is powerful. When you're doing something that you really love, it creates a real power. And so that's what the second question is. Why is it important to me? Get rid of the things that were just flashy and really study those things that are really important to you and understand why they're important to you, because that's the anchoring part. That's what gives them the strength. That's what gives you the strength to continue writing in my book case when I can't figure out what to write. Doesn't matter. You got to do it, right? You're in a situation, you got to do it because you decided it's important to you. The third question, and I don't know if I'd say it's the most important, but you can't do anything without it, is now you have to answer the question, how will you bring it into your life? And you have to acknowledge the fact that before I decided to turn myself into an author, I was fully busy 24/7. There was no extra time. And so now I've decided, hey, I want to be an author. I want to write a book. Okay, how am I going to create the time that's necessary to write a book? And what resources might I need? And what obstacles? So I have to start to think, how will I bring this thing into my life? And to stay on with my particular story, at Happy Living, we were about 2 years old at the time that we decided to do the books. And we were experimenting with different things. One of the things we wanted to do was have Happy Living adventures. And we had tried to sell an adventure in Cancun with a fourth degree Taekwondo master that was going to teach us how to face our fears. And we were going to write about it, and we were going to bring our big community to there, Well, it just didn't take. I hadn't given up on it yet, but it was a struggle for me. We were also looking to build software tools for Happy Living. And one particular project I was really excited about. But I decided, wait a second, the books are really important to me. They fit everything. That's what I want to do. And I decided to give up on those other things that created the space in my business life. I also made the decision that I was going to write the very first thing in the morning. I was going to write for 90 days, 90 minutes, 5 days a week until I was done. And that was it. And so I put it at the front of my line so that I couldn't get busy during the day and not get to my writing. And so you just have to figure out what tricks will work for you, but you must figure out how you bring it into your life, and you have to make space for it. And then when you've answered those three questions, answering that third question and making the space for it and figuring out how you bring it into your life, that invokes the third power, which is the power of the universe. And the power of the universe is, some people call it serendipity or coincidence, but that's when you've decided to do something, and then all of a sudden, down the line, someone steps in to help you, some meeting happens to you on accident that you couldn't have imagined, something gives you help along. And again, back to the same story. I left the conference where I decided I was going to start writing a book about turning conference inspiration into action. And I called on the way home, I called a lady who I used to work with in my old trade business who ran conferences. And the folks at the Paleo conference wanted to talk to her about going international and so on and so forth. So I was just doing a matchmaking connection type of thing. And I explained it. She said, "What are you doing there?" And I explained to her what's going on, and I decided to write a book. And she said, "Well, you should do the keynote at our next conference in Las Vegas." So
Perfect.
After I'd left my industry that I worked in for 10 years and built my business up and had all these friends and colleagues, 2 years after being out, I get invited back to do a keynote on something called Turn Inspiration into Action that I had just barely started to figure out what it was. And, so that's the power of the process.
I love it. I love it. It's, what I love about, well, first of all, I just wanted to share with our audience, one of the reasons I invited Matt, one of our only men, it's mostly women because it's called Unstoppable Woman. But what I love is that you are using a masculine approach of, step by step, but with the feminine in it, which is the mama bear. Then the mama bear is inspired, but you do have to have some structure, which I have also learned, and I'm learning now, is to be unstoppable, you really have to have the structure. And within the structure is all this creativity, is the muse, is the inspiration and the creativity that can come out. So I love your focus on women, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. Just today you wrote published an article about the Women's Day, and what I love is, and what I want to ask you about too, because within that you're also talking about another book that you're writing called Women of Significance, and I want to hear about that. But the title of your post today, your published article, is Badass Ladies Blazing the Path to Gender Equality. And it's so time, I feel, and it's exciting. So I would love for you to share a little bit about that with our audience.
I'd love to. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about the badass ladies that are getting equal.
Badass lady, yes.
And it really follows along the story of the three powers, and especially the power of the universe. Well, not especially, also paying attention to what I'm attracted to. And that attraction is, it's also not just things that you like, but things that make you feel good, or opportunities that spark up, unexpectedly. And that's what happened with the women, and what led to the post today was a series of coincidences. And they started back when we started Happy Living, and one of the first themed kind of series that we do over and over, we call Something of Significance. And the idea was to write about ordinary people doing extraordinary things in the world. And I define significance as doing something that you love. You got to do stuff you love, folks. You have to figure out how to do what you love.
Yes.
And I'll just do a quick side note. When I was real young and I had lots of things that I had to do, a lot more than I have to do today, when my day was 99% have to do, I had to try to figure out, even if it's just 1% of what I want to do, and then build on that. So no matter where you are, take care of what you have to do, but spend as much time on what you want to do. And that'll give you a big boost in your life anyways. So defining significance is doing something that you love, which is really important, but also doing something that gives value to others. So it's not just being selfish, it's doing something you love and giving back at the same time. And that's where you hit the magic. So we started writing about a monthly series on something significant. I did the first one. I started my company in the dark because I was still selling my old company. And so my daughter ran it for a couple of months, and then I was introduced as the founder and did my Something Significant interview. So I was the first one. And over the course of the first year, most of the interviews were men. And not by choice, it's just the way it worked out. and then all of a sudden, I started hitting interesting woman after interesting woman after interesting woman. And I'll tell you a few of them. One is a lady that I knew a long time ago, but she finally consented. So I was chasing her for about a year, and she finally consented to do my interview. And she is a Dutch-born lady who moved with her family down to Zimbabwe to start a farming operation. While she was there, she noticed that the kids had no educational system. So the people who they were hiring, their kids were not getting educated. So she started a school. 30 years later, she has one of the largest schools in Zimbabwe. She has a program that not only helps educate the kids, but educates specifically the women on how to lift themselves up and take care of themselves financially. Beautiful, wow. Beautiful story, beautiful woman. So after her, then I got 2 recommendations from my paleo conference. And so 2 ladies that are entrepreneurs in the physical fitness realm, both badass ladies. I found a book called The Art of Grace. It's one of my very favorite books of all time. And so using social media such as we have today, I introduced myself to the artist, started flattering her that her book is so awesome. So she, of course, liked the flattery, and we became friends. And I said, hey, will you do an interview with me? So her name is Sarah Kaufman, and she's just brilliant. And her words are absolutely amazing and spot on. The Art of Grace, I would recommend it to everyone. Awesome. And then we had a lady that we that works for us at Happy Living. That's our Happy Living expert in personalized nutrition. And so she's got an amazing story. She was 20, 30 years in the corporate world, wanted to do something different. She wasn't fulfilled in her life, always loved food. So I think she took a 2 years apprenticeship, unpaid. So she leaves as an executive, high, well-paid person in the business world, and she goes 2 years unpaid to learn how to become a registered nutritionist. And now she's building up her own business, and she's also writing for Happy Living. So all of a sudden, all these women started just one interview after another, really moving, really powerful women. And along the lines, I also stumbled into, I missed Tiffany, a filmmaker. So I was on a business trip, and I was watching my computer like I'm doing here, watching a film, a documentary. It happened to be Tiffany's. I had no idea who she was or what it was, but I was attracted to the title, Connected. And so I watched her movie, and it was so brilliant. It was about how technology is changing the world, making it smaller so that we're all more connected. And at the same time she's making her movie, her father's dying of cancer. And that story is interwoven in her movie, which was unplanned, but it made it, his heart cry. I fell in love with her and her dad at the same time. Yeah. And so I tracked her down, and I told her I loved her movie and asked her if she would endorse my first book, The Belief Roadmap, which she did. And she did an interview. And then she got involved in this program 50/50. She's the founder of it. So that's a coincidental tie into today's, to the post I wrote last month. And there's one other tie in particular. I'm just forgetting it. And then International Women's Day. So last year, I stumbled into International Women's Day is on March 8th. So I said, okay, this year, I'm going to target that, and I'm going to write a post about it. And not only am I going to write a post about it, but before I even started conjuring up the post, Tiffany introduced 50/50. So it wasn't even around at the time I was thinking about it, or at least I didn't know about it. So just all this stuff comes together into a moment. And we created this post today that I really love. It focuses on what's really happened in the history of women, but also it's very uplifting in that, we women don't have to settle for it. We women need to celebrate our trailblazers who are taking the spears for us. And we women, especially today, most of the limits, I think, excuse me if I'm overstepping my bounds as a man, but I'm a father and a husband and a son. Most of the limitations, I think, on women, if you set aside financial and all those other things, which are the same for everybody, are the same limitations that men are facing. It's the gravity. And if we get away from the gravity, and I believe if we get into that process of paying attention to what we love, why we love it, and start carving out time for it, that's how we're going to do, as you say, start living that wonderful life, being unstoppable in your space.
Beautiful. Thank you. And that gravity is that negativity that keeps us down. I would love to hear your personal, I guess, your reason why you're so, really committed to women and the movement that's happening. I know you have daughters and a beautiful wife, and because there's not a lot of men like you. There is some great men in the world, that are absolutely taking a stand and speaking and really speaking about equality and so on. What do you think is in it for you? I'm just curious.
Well, that's the great part of the second half of my life. I'm really trying to learn, and I haven't got it figured out yet. I was about as hard charging as you could imagine as a up and coming executive. And when I bought my company, and what do they say, type A, right? I was maybe a type A plus. And everything, I would do things that might have appeared to be generous, but it was always advancing a cause. And I thought, when I flipped the switch and I got out of the business world and into this new world, lifestyle, where it's still business, but I was doing business to business, and now I'm doing business to people. I'm creating something for others. And I've tried really hard and planned at the beginning that, I have to let go of trying to be successful in the way I think of it. How many books sold? How much money are you making? What do you get paid for your speaking? All those things that I would have insisted on in my earlier life, and switch the switch to say, what can I do to give to others? And if I'm being honest with you, it's really hard for me because that's not how I'm trained. One of the things I learned I read the Tao, Wayne Dyer's book on the Tao every day. And one of the things I learned in the Tao, and if you're familiar with it, it's crazy for me to understand it. It's all, paradoxes and all that. But one of the things was you have to unlearn life. And what does that mean? Well, I used to be a football player, and when force was coming against me, the offensive player, I met that force with force. That's the way I learned. You always meet force, but now I'm supposed to, go with the force and do just the opposite of what I'm doing. And so as it relates to doing something to be successful or doing something to give back, I'm trying to learn to focus on the giving back part. And I think the big irony of all of it is if I can actually do that, can really, really do that, that'll give the chance for happy living to make the biggest impact on the world as possible. And in fact, that concept, that yin and yang of that concept of being fantastic the way we normally think about it and really giving back is how I came up with our mission to improve the health and well-being of the world. Well, that's pretty big. That's yang all the way, right? But one person at a time. And if I can really remember that, so this we're doing today, if we could reach one person, one woman somewhere that says, wow, this is what I have to do, that should be more than enough. And when I started Happy Living, I said, really, if really all I ever do from it is improve the health and well-being of one person, one member of my family, wouldn't that be enough? So I'm not there. I'm working on it. Hemalayaa, I'm working hard on it, but I believe that's what I'm supposed to be doing now. So with the women's movement, I shouldn't call it that. I didn't chase it. It kind of came together, and I paid attention to it. And I think it fits. I decided it is important to my heart. I didn't know that, but I went through the process and said, you know what? This is really important. So I'm going to do as much of it as the world will let me.
Yeah.
And if it ends up, 10 years from now that happy living is an old man talking to a bunch of women around the world about how they can improve their lives, maybe that's what happy living is supposed to be. So we'll see.
Great. Well, it sounds like now you're meeting whatever force or whatever idea or whatever opportunity comes to you with passion and with gusto and with who you truly are. It doesn't have to be force, but it could be this force of your own passion and
with heart.
Yeah, with heart.
Beautiful. The power of the heart.
Yeah, that's the feminine too, right there. So, well, thank you so much, Matt. That was really beautiful. And you have a gift for everyone. Would you share about that?
Yeah, so the gift is, it's an electronic copy of the first book that we did that I undersold earlier. But I think it is a really good book. It's called The Belief Roadmap. And it's all about when we created Happy Living, we established what we call the 7 foundations of health. And mind you, this is the way I see the world, and my daughter and a few others that helped me craft this idea. And so it's not necessarily perfectly transferable, but everyone should have something along these lines, I think, that give them a guiding light on what they want to do with their life. So our 7 foundations of health it's a pyramid with 4 blocks, 2 blocks, and 1. The bottom 4 blocks are the 4 fitnesses: physical fitness, mental fitness, spiritual fitness, and financial fitness. We threw in finance, makes us different from almost every other site. The 2 middle blocks are love and adventure, and then the tippy top is significance. Awesome. So I started writing Happy Living posts about what were my philosophies on each of these areas. And when we decided to get into the book business, I thought I already had about 6 of them done. So I did a few more, rounded out. I did one on the philosophy of why we're here and a few others. And then my daughter co-wrote the book with me. She kind of gave us a nice introduction into it, why it's important, and so on and so forth. And on the back end, she did a little bit of a workbook type of thing of how you can create your own life philosophies. And so that's the book that we're giving away. We'd love for your attendees to read it, and hopefully it can help them establish philosophies in their own life that will guide them to the best life possible.
Well, thank you so much. That's really generous of you. I know everyone's going to get a lot from that. And I am excited to keep sharing these incredible interviews. I want to thank Matt for being with us today, and to all of you for being so open. Obviously, this is called the Unstoppable Woman series, but it's for everyone. It's not just for women. It's for everyone. And in focus for women specifically that don't feel like it's possible. It is possible. You heard it from Matt. You've heard it from our other speakers. Keep listening. I'm excited. Hemalayaa signing off. Thank you for being with us.